It's an executive session unless you want it in open.
Right.
Pardon?
It's an executive session
Right,
unless
but
you want it in
he's saying
open.
that,
Unless you want it in open.
No.
Right.
I just want to let everybody sit down. If we go, are we on?
Yes.
Okay. If we go into executive session, we as the board have the right to review annual contracts in executive session. We do not have to invite the employees into executive session because we are discussing a strategy of that contract, which does not include you. You, however, do have the right to ask that this discussion be held in open session, if you so choose. And then you would be sitting in the audience and you would see the discussion. You're still not part of the discussion. You're just there. So we sent the email out last night asking if anybody wants it in open session, it would be held in open session.
that's not what it says.
That's not what I put in the email, because I didn't understand it.
Okay.
I thought that they could come in to the executive session. when
If the
they're
You
board
have-
wants to
discussing
invite them
contract.
in, the board can, but the board is not required to
And
invite them.
just as a point of order, if you're talking about negotiation strategy, that's really a non-meeting. I mean, we can go into executive session and not invite anybody in, nor give them the option to hold it in open session. It's a non-meeting if you're discussing strategy. If you're talking about the terms of the contract, then that's something entirely different.
From Shipman and Goodwin, we can discuss the terms, we can discuss the entire contract, we can go into executive session. We do not have to invite the employee in.
Into executive session.
Right.
But they do have
They
that.
do have the right to hold
Based on
their
what
whole,
you're-
they have the right to say that they would rather have this in open session. And then we just
That's
sit here and discuss it. I mean, that was the intent of the email.
And that's per individual.
Yes,
So
per individual
we have how
contract.
many
We have
individual contracts?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them.
And how many individuals want to have it in open session?
We didn't ask that question yet. That's why we came back
Oh,
out, because
okay.
some expressed that they might want to.
Okay.
So before we do go into executive session, how many of them?
We've been declared in open session. Because we know our
No,
last
we
vote was
didn't.
going to executive session.
Okay. All right, I declare we're back in open session. Thank you. So we're going to do the review of non-union contracts. If there are any members of the 7 that would like to have it discussed in open, they have that right. And those that do not want it discussed in open, we will go into executive session to discuss. Top of the list is Mr. Becerra. What would you like, sir?
I'm fine with executive session.
Okay. Mr. Campolito?
I'm fine with executive session.
Deborah Palutro?
Executive session.
Okay. Donald Labby?
Executive session.
Barbara?
Open.
Jamie?
You have to just clarify it.
No, that's fine.
Having it open or executive, there's no discussion in which I have any input or anything. There's no questions that will be asked of me at any point.
No, sir.
It's basically you guys just deciding.
The superintendent is going to make a recommendation to us on
Right.
your contract, and we're going to decide whether we accept that recommendation or not.
Right, so it's not even a matter of anything in my contract or not.
No.
The bottom line is, she made a recommendation, you guys are gonna say yay or nay.
Right.
Then I'm fine with it, you can go into executive session.
Okay. Tina?
Executive session, please.
Okay.
Mr. Schaub, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Since we aren't going to be allowed into executive session, then how are we supposed to know what was decided on our contracts? Because then you're going to come out and you're going to go for approval of the contracts.
Yes. We're going to go on the superintendent's, if the superintendent's recommendation is accepted, then we are going to vote on those contracts. If the superintendent's recommendation is not accepted, then we are not going to vote on that contract.
Which would
Thank
mean
you.
that she would make another contract that
Yes.
you guys would have to.
Then there would be a discussion, I'm assuming, between the two or
Okay.
whatever, and then that would come back to us. Because this is late into the season, the recommendation from Shipman and Goodwin was that if a contract is not approved tonight, that there would be a 30 or 60-day temporary contract holding the existing terms until the new contract could be reached. because there is no July meeting, so it wouldn't be a 30-day extension, it would have to be a 60. And then in August, we would then vote on the next recommendation.
Right, so the bottom line of tonight is that she made a recommendation, you're gonna say yea or nay. If you say nay, then it's gonna come back to a negotiation of whoever,
Yes,
and then it'll go back to you guys to say yea or nay.
yes,
So this is like a yes or no thing, basically.
pretty much.
Pretty
To
much.
clarify, we will discuss some of the things. There
We
will be
will
discussion.
discuss the term, you know,
Right, I just wanna
the
clarify, it's not
recommendation.
Strictly a yes or no, it's a discussion on
The
the
end result is gonna be yes or no.
end result. will be
Yes.
Right, and we have no say in, and you have no questions to ask us.
In the discussion.
Right, if someone comes in, I'll give you an example, I'm gonna pick sick days. If someone looks at the thing and says that, I'll pick on Mr. Becerra because he's on the top of the list. And I don't know what his numbers are, this is purely hypothetical.
Right.
And it says that he has 50 sick days. Mr. Nargi might say, 50 sick days, so then there'll be a discussion about that, but as a whole, the package as presented will either be yes or no.
Right.
But there might be discussion of someone saying, you know, I don't understand this, or,
Right, but once again, we would have, there would be no,
yeah, we're not gonna put, it's not a negotiation between us and
Right.
you. This is strictly a conversation with the superintendent.
okay. Then I'm
So
good.
that's-
You could
that's
do
why
it
it's-
executively. I'm good.
Okay.
Mr. Chubb, I have one more question. I still don't understand if our individual contracts are going to be looked at and talked about. Why we don't have the choice with being personnel matters, but as individual personnel matters, why we don't have the choice. I thought it was you have the choice to go in open session, or you can have it discussed in executive session, but the person you're discussing can be there.
If it's performance-based.
Okay, so this is gonna have nothing to do with the evaluations that the superintendent,
She will not be sharing those evaluations with us.
okay. Not even for her reasons why she's recommending whatever she's recommending?
I don't know what her reasons for recommending are, so I can't answer that. But it will not be in line 7 of Mrs. Pulittro's annual review, I feel. It would just be her recommendation of this is what I think is necessary for this position. But in the review that we got from Shipman, it said that what was allowed, what wasn't allowed, and that we're not required under state statute in this exact situation to invite in the members if we don't want to. It's a board decision.
But anybody who is worried about that can require that we meet in open session
Absolutely.
to discuss them.
Absolutely. Yep. And at the board's opinion, it is the board's right whether we invite in the individual members or not. We don't have to, it's our, you know, if we want to just go in, discuss it, and come out, that's our choice. If we want to invite them in, then as a board, we would have to decide to invite in each individual member and then, but it would still not be a question and answer because it is not our job to evaluate or interrogate or the individual staff members. So all they would be doing at that point is listening to the conversation. We still wouldn't, you know, ask Jamie a specific question. So, how do we want to proceed? You're still on open, right, Barbara? It's
It
time
doesn't matter to
to.
me either, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter to me at this point either way. If you all, based on the majority, if everybody wants to go into an exec, that's fine.
No, it's your right. It's your, whatever you want. I mean, there's no pressure. I mean,
I
we
have,
could-
I have no problem doing it open. I
Okay.
really don't have a problem doing it open.
Then we'll do yours in open. Then.
Awesome.
That's fine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
there's absolutely no.
Awesome.
So why don't we do that one first, and then we'll go into exec. However you were. Do you have a copy?
I can make one there. Oh, okay.
As you get this list, you will see every position. And for the record, there's no names on this. It's strictly by position because we're not discussing people, we're discussing a task or a job description. We are only going to discuss
the technical application facilitator.
Okay, so I didn't know what the actual title was, I'm sorry. All we're gonna discuss out here is the bottom one. I thought it was just IT, I didn't know that one.
We are looking at the technical application facilitator. You see what the current salary is, the projected salary. Also that this position receives an annuity, what it is for 2013-14, and then what it'll be for 2014-15. That because this position uses their own personal automobile for driving around the district, they receive travel reimbursement, 2013-2014. This position allocates 20 annual sick days, 20 vacation days, 2 personal days, and they are part of the health program for the district. It's based on an 8-hour workday, but this person also needs to be available weekends, evenings, whenever something happens, she responds immediately. The position
There you
responds
go.
immediately. Apologize.
Not that we haven't identified.
No, right.
I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Discussion. Ellen?
Yeah, because while these are just the terms, I think the contract itself, I do have some questions on, specifically the retiree, the retirement benefit, where the board is committing to providing health insurance, high option plan equivalent to Anthem, which I think you already indicated was not the desire of the board to offer those. 65 plan or its equivalent at no cost to the retiree. You know, these are the very,
Which position is that?
technical application facilitator?
At a last personnel, then budget committee meeting,
Is that
everything, it was aligned. So this reflects the alignment that the board has requested.
What we did at a personnel meeting, Eleanor, was because the contracts were all over the board, like if you opened up a contract and you took out the director of facilities contract, section A was salary. If you went to the director of human resources contract, you opened it up, section A was travel expense. And if you went, so what we did was we format-wise aligned all the contracts so that no matter what contract you open up, A is A, B is B, C is, and then took a lot of the language and, and blended it so that it all, it's uniform across.
But that
So the
doesn't
question
change
is-
the fact that in this contract, this is offered as a benefit, post-employment
Is
benefit.
that still in that contract?
In the technical application facilitator, it was never in there.
It is, right
It
there.
is, you needed a contract that was distributed.
Why are we not all getting a copy of each of these contracts?
You
You were
did.
sent,
They're on the computer?
you were sent them several times, actually. Yes, before the last meeting you had them. We didn't reprint them, though, because everybody was given them.
So just to finish my thought, I would encourage the board to, these are the very provisions in our contracts that we're trying to negotiate out. We're trying to eliminate these long-term liabilities. This is a one-year contract, year-to-year position. I just think it isn't wise for the board to commit taxpayers' dollars for that long-term obligation.
You wouldn't have a date that we could look at to see these contracts, would you? Because I don't remember it either.
It was in April.
Yeah.
It was
Hold on.
April.
April
16th.
15th.
15th and 16th they were sent out.
Can you resend these right now?
I didn't send them originally.
I sent it.
Can you resend them to us on the computer?
I can do anything.
You can, are you sure? Want to
Right now?
resend them now? So, these are the contracts we're voting on now, not the old ones.
No, these were the old contracts.
So do we have the ones
And
we're voting
these-
on now? Was Andrew's question.
This is the revision to the existing contract, from what I
So
understand.
the rest of the contract language you're proposing remains the same.
You, at those meetings, when it went from personnel
But
to
that never went to the
budget.
board.
No, but
But now
it was
you're-
recommended, that night, it was recommended to have alignment among these positions.
Mhm.
And that's what was presented here. So that if voted on this piece, then this would become the language for the new contracts. That's how it was interpreted, sorry.
Right, so the actual contracts have not been put into.
We don't have the
written form.
contract we're voting on in front of us. We have
Then-
old contracts that we are supposed to be able to interpret in terms of this chart, right? Is that what we're told? I just want to make sure I understand what we're being told.
Well, I wish I understood what I was told.
Well, that may well be. I don't deny that's possible.
And this language doesn't appear in this other contracts. It does appear in this.
That was the problem, because every contract of these 8 people were totally different.
It's,
And we had
it's
two,
in several of them, just a couple of them.
we had, and we wanted consistency. This is what the board wanted, to be consistent in people's contracts.
So the question I would have is it the board's plan to eliminate that language from this contract? I understand these terms, which there's a motion on the floor and a second to accept these terms, but I would strongly encourage the board to take a look at this additional language, because these benefits are, they get to be very expensive. You know, in the long-term liability to the taxpayer, these are unfunded. And much of the way we're talking about, you know, an earlier discussion about those unfunded obligations, we have to be able to budget for these and prepare for these long after the retirees leave the district.
That I make a recommendation, if I can, that we don't proceed any further with this, because this was the summary of the contracts, and that we go back, and Mr. Campolita and I will rewrite the contracts. I will then share the rewritten contracts with the 8 individuals, and then bring them back to the board in August.
7.
Hmm?
7 individuals.
7. Well, hopefully I'll have an 8th person there too.
Could we not have board agreement on the terms? I mean, this would be the same now as it would be in August, correct? I mean, you're not going to change your recommendation between now and then.
Not in these pieces, no.
I'm just thinking, it might behoove us to, if we're going to have the discussion about all of these things now versus
And then I'll
table
bring-
it, then come back, then we're gonna have to reopen again.
Because there are some people who have something different in theirs, and that would be the addendum. I guess that's why they always did the addendum, and this year, we got into changing their entire contract. The board started it last year, and they continued it this year.
Mr. Chairman, if we're expected to vote on these, I would like to see the contracts we're voting on. He said he sent them out to us.
No, well, what we got with the
No.
old ones, no, we don't have the contract.
You asked what
voted.
Eleanor was reading, which is last year's contract, which was sent to everybody on April 15th.
Last year's contract.
Yes.
And that's why I said, where is the contract that we are going to vote on tonight? Or would have voted on tonight? It doesn't matter if you make any changes or don't make any changes. It is a contract. It is whether or not you change one word or a lot of words, we want to see the entire contract that we're going to vote on.
Fine.
I don't agree.
Fine.
Is that the board's wish?
I'm just
I'm just
confused.
trying to think how
The
to-
contracts, the old contracts we have, if I'm understanding administration correctly, because I was at this meeting,
Right.
these meetings, there are no changes to the contract's terms other than this. Is that correct? There's no substantive change. If there was a benefit in here last year, that benefit has carried over. It has not been added to unless it appears different on here.
And this was the areas of agreement.
I don't
Okay.
understand why we
Yeah,
can't.
but all we talked
Come
about
to
at
an
the
agreement on this.
right, all we talked about at the personnel agreement was the order in which the contract is constructed. That, you know, salary is A, life insurance is B, health insurance is C. We didn't actually discuss what each individual contract's benefit was. We discussed how we wanted to see the contracts laid out, so that in the future, no matter which contract somebody grabbed, if you wanted to know, using the cheat sheet, the grant writer for early childhood coordinators health insurance plan, you would go to section C, and there it is. You wouldn't have to read through all 10 pages because it's A on hers, it's Z on this one. That was the understanding of the personnel committee before I left that night, that that's all that we were going to discuss was the format.
Because the first time, it was done in an addendums, and
Well,
that.
this is essentially an addendum.
Right.
So the question that the mayor had is in this contract for technical application facilitator, there is a statement that says retirees and dependents will be provided an Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield High Opinion Plan or its equivalent, and Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield P65 Plan 81 or its equivalent at no cost to the retiree.
Same as was in there last year.
Same as was in there last year.
That was not part of the discussion that night.
We're not arguing. We're saying that this is part of this contract. If this is an addendum, then this only changes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This addresses 7 parts of
items.
this,
Right,
but not 40 parts of this.
right.
So that means the other 33 parts remain the same. Is that your proposal? That's what we're asking. So in this particular case, this retiree independent will be provided insurance or its equivalent at no cost to the retiree for how long?
Until she's 65,
Until she's 65.
or until the individual's.
All right, well, this is under early retirement?
No.
Okay.
And very
I don't know where that
honestly-
says till she's 60, till the
Well,
person's
that's what that
65.
65 plan is.
That's on the dental.
65 plan 81, or it's equivalent.
I thought that was the dental plan. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd be very suspicious of extrapolating anything from that executive session, because for one thing, our own lawyer told us it was an illegal executive session.
That's not true. Our lawyer told us that we could discuss the format and only the format of the contract, and it could be a strategy session. That was what I said at the beginning, and that was right from Shipman's lips as I walked into the building.
And it was an argument which he characterized as erroneous in response to a remark I made. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Going to the concept of an addendum, these are one-year contracts.
Yes.
You don't have an addendum, on June 30th, all of these people have no contract with the board.
That's correct.
So when you say this, Cheryl uses the word addendum, you don't have an addendum as of June 30th with any of these people. We're going to do we're going to vote on an entirely new contract. It may be every word is exactly the same as last year's contract, but it's a totally new contract. So we should be looking at what this totally new contract is with these terms in it.
Okay, the reason that you don't have that is we voted, or we decided, we didn't vote, at the last meeting, this district has done addendums to these annual contracts forever.
Okay.
And we decided that we needed as a board to have at our retreat, that we determined roles and responsibilities, which is coming up in July.
Okay.
And that it was decided at that meeting by a unanimous vote, because you had already left, that the superintendent would do this year's contracts the same as every other years have been done, and that this summer, we would revamp how the hiring, firing, and contract roles and responsibilities are laid out. And that would become part of a bylaw or a policy, which is what Mr. Mills recommended that it should be.
The recommendation was that we would bifurcate this process into a contract and an addendum process.
That's how it's been done
Well,
in this
I'm
district.
saying that he knowing that's how it was done in some situations, not, I don't believe over the last 6 years, every contract was done in the manner in which you're talking about, which contract and addendum.
That's exactly how they've all been done. You can go down to Midget Avenue and look at the files.
Yeah, we have 30
Every
years
year,
ago.
everybody's only voted, every year this board's
Yes.
only voted on the insurance and the pay. That's it.
But it wasn't an addendum.
It was. It's a sheet stapled to the original hiring contract. That's how it's been done from day one.
And who
Many
put
of
the
these-
word addendum onto it?
That's just typed on the top. I don't, whoever
Because,
typed it.
and Mills said that.
No, he did not speak on behalf of that. This was the board made a decision.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No, but he doesn't decide. The board sat there as a group and decided that this was the direction we were going to go forward.
What I'm, and
So he
maybe,
didn't rule on that.
I don't think that what you think you were doing is what you were actually doing. I don't really.
Actually, I think what I did was exactly what I thought I did.
No, I'm trying
So,
to,
I mean,
I'm trying to say something.
we didn't do what you
I
did.
don't think you think that just because you put into a separate sheet addendum, it was actually an addendum, because it was part of the new contract. It was a new contract, and I don't, you added it by a sheet, because whoever was doing it may have been too lazy to actually type up and put in 55,000 versus 53,000 and a couple other words. So instead of rewriting the entire contract and having it as a new contract, you just said, well, these two terms are an addendum to this past contract. We have an attorney here who may or may not understand what I'm saying, or may just not agree with what I'm saying. But I don't believe that, like I said, you had a one-year contract, it terminated, you couldn't add an addendum to that past contract. It's not an addendum, it's a new contract. And if you added the word to this sheet, addendum to this sheet, which was the old contract, and then that became the new contract. It's a new contract. It's not an addendum, a new contract and an addendum.
That's correct. It's technically a new contract because it has
Yes,
terms
but
on
you
the
keep
addendum
using the
sheet.
word, it's been done as an addendum all along. It's technically, I don't believe from a legal perspective, it's really an addendum.
Okay, I will retract the word addendum.
Okay,
There's been a
so,
revision sheet stapled to the front of every pass with a new term starting July 1, ending June 30th, and then the new conditions added to the original, which is made an exhibit attached to the back. Is that
and
better
again,
legal
it's
term?
not okay, look.
No, I'm just,
We want to move forward. I think the way you want to move forward is that we're going to look at a new contract. I think what Mr. Kisco wants, I think what the mayor's talking about is we want to see what the new contract is. Send it to us.
you're actually looking at the next year's contract. It's what was sent out with this.
Addendum.
And no, because it's not an addendum, it's an exhibit attached to it, changing the terms and the certain conditions. I got rid of the word addendum.
It's not in, okay, well, maybe it is an exhibit. I don't think it's an exhibit, but.
Pick a word. Sheet attached. Whatever you want to call it.
Right, it's a new contract.
Yes, with
Okay.
this wording, with
Okay.
these revisions attached to it. That was the decision in that room a month ago.
Okay.
Because we have to change our bylaws, we have to change the format of our policy, and we have to change the structure of the contracts, which we could not get accomplished in 1 month.
Okay.
So that was the reason for that decision. And that next year, by the time next year comes, there would be a new format.
Within the
Okay,
policy.
we're talking about what we want to do as far as these 8 contracts which expire on June 30th.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the direction that you're perceiving to go forward now?
The direction was for the superintendent to make a proposal of revisions to the existing contracts to make a 1-year new contract starting on July 1st.
Okay, and when will we see that new contract?
That new contract is this page stapled to the one you received on April 15th. So if you go back and open the email that I also just sent to you again, you'll see
Let's see if I can get
the contract. Any other discussion?
I'm going to do it for you.
Well, because now I'm confused.
Okay.
If what you're saying is essentially the board, by its vote here on this particular contract, you're saying the contract as it currently exists with these terms, in fact,
Yes.
you're saying you don't want to reopen any other language in this contract?
I didn't say that. I just
Okay.
said that's what we're submitting right now.
All right.
I'm not speaking my personal opinion on anything.
Well, I was confused because it sounded to me like what we were approving. And
Well, if we vote to approve this, we are voting to approve the existing language with these revisions.
With just the terms, and the terms being the monetary, the terms being your base
Sick days,
salary.
vacation,
the-
salary,
Yeah.
that, those would be adjusted essentially in the existing plan.
Yeah. And so, still on the floor, you still have a motion on the floor, and there is discussion. So certainly, from the floor, if a recommendation is to eliminate language outside of what's in this matrix that you have prepared, then that would be entertained, discussed, and voted on.
Yes. Well, we're essentially either going to accept the recommendation or deny the recommendation, and then the superintendent is going, we will, obviously, through our discussion, be giving our input
Sure.
of how we feel.
Which I think is only fair to the
And then the
superintendent, to get an
superintendent,
idea, right.
right, we'll go back and work that out, and anyone that we cannot come to terms with, we'll have to give an extension till our next board meeting so that there's adequate time to
Which makes sense.
put the contract together.
With that said, if
Mhm.
I would also recommend that the board look at the co-pays and cost share. And I don't know if these are, here again, the advantage of, those co-pays is, once again, the ultimate cost to the district for insurance. And based on some of the earlier conversations regarding some movement in a positive direction in co-pays, I think this is another opportunity to investigate that.
Are the I thought the insurance for all non-bargaining unit staff was mirrored upon the administrator's contract. So whatever the administrator's co-pays become this year, right?
Some are based on secretary. So, mine, for example, is based on the administrators, the director of business services, the director of facilities, the superintendent as administrators. Some are based on the secretaries. And the way the language used to be, it was a few sentences that reflected that, and then last year, I believe the board wanted every single word printed out, so.
And also doing this, the co-pay and the cost share, last year, someone got a raise and also an increase in the cost share, so one of the people on this list actually came out behind.
Well, that was my point specifically to the position that we're discussing, is there already was a change that is not memorialized in this term, in these terms, correct, with the cost share?
In last year's, in the current year contract, there was a change in the cost share.
The $5 generic is a change.
No.
That's
The-
not
the-
cost share, that's copay.
Or copay, that's what I'm asking.
The cost share
The
was
copays
changed.
excuse me, the
Yeah.
copays did not change.
And it all depends upon which contract they're along with. That's part of the difficulty here, because some of these individuals, their contracts are written based on the superintendent.
Is
And
my
it-
understanding correct? I just want to make this simple, because I thought with, hopefully, the way that things are, the direction we're going with all bargaining units, will be under the same copay. For any of these contracts that is modeled after any bargaining unit contract, the copays are all the same this year upcoming.
They haven't voted on it though yet, right?
No.
The direction that we're heading.
Yes.
So this discussion about copays, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but if we continue, when you say PPO health, it does take into account that increased copays.
It would reflect whatever bargaining unit contract,
Because that's
this
just-
non-bargaining unit contract is based on.
You
yes.
read that and then it doesn't say this here, so that would be confusing on our part.
Not necessarily,
Right.
no, because a PPO plan here in the current contract says with a $15 copay for home and office preventive care. I don't know that that's consistent.
Right,
Right, exactly.
right.
But then-
So it's
right,
not
but-
consistent with
But
some of
going
the
up-
negotiations that you've been.
Going up on the bargaining unit, this is, because the way this is spelled out, this would have to be changed.
I just want, when we're voting on this is one here, when you say PPO health, it's whatever terms are existing in the bargaining unit contract. So we don't need to individually say about any position, right, if you're looking at individuals, any position. We don't have to have that discussion because it will be mirrored after a discussion we've already had with the bargaining unit.
And what's difficult here is that I am not involved with any negotiations.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
I
this,
have
generally
to
speaking,
create-
your intent with this is to do what I
Right,
just said.
To reflect.
But I would appreciate the board saying that and making it clear so the superintendent has some clear instruction. Because it's really quite clearly spelled out in detail in the language in this contract.
That it's different than what we're going for.
And I have another question for the board. So then, original contracts that people signed when they were first hired, they're only in 1 year duration?
Yes.
And so I didn't hire all these people, but I will from now on. If it was not said to them upon being hired, do we have a problem with that?
No, because there's a term on the contract. It gives you a start date and an end date. It's just like getting a cable TV contract. There's a start date and an end date.
So,
Or a credit card or anything else. It tells you when it starts and when it ends and your mortgage.
Just asking.
There's a start and an end.
So I'm looking at one contract here, and it,
Which one? We're only addressing one.
we're still
We
on
are
just-
addressing the technical application facilitator only.
okay, I'm just talking about how,
Is it a different contract?
okay,
Then
this
we're
is,
not gonna talk about it.
this is the 13-14 contract
Of what?
of one of these.
Of the technical application facilitator, you can talk about it out here. The rest of them ask for executive. So you have to go to just that one.
And I'm not talking about that specific person or even that specific position. I'm only talking about when you,
If you're not talking about that contract, we're not talking about it.
talking about your statement that all these contracts over the years had addendums to them. And I don't see any addendums to these contracts. We're talking about a,
Because last year, we sat through 3 meetings
yeah,
where we directed the superintendent to retype these and bring them in, and then we went over them and over them and over them.
Okay, and then you had a total contract.
Yes.
Right, so why are you saying that this year we're dealing with an addendum concept? Or whatever?
We're dealing with what we've done every other year.
And I'm telling you, okay, whatever you want to say.
I'm just, yes, sir.
The discussion about this particular one, I think the monetary compensation is more than fair, considering that there's been a change to the health insurance last year that was a net loss to the employee. And everything else seems to be in line. So I, again, encourage everyone to just accept the terms as a technical application facilitator.
Any other discussion?
And that's a 3% increase?
It's a 3%. It's a 3%.
Yeah, well,
$1,605.
I'm gonna vote against the 3%.
Any other discussion?
And I agree with Mr. Rivero. I think the terms that are projected here in this matrix appear to be more than acceptable. I just strongly urge the board to consider these other provisions in here that obligate the city and the board for a very long time in the future on retirement benefits for a year-to-year employee. And quite frankly, it says in the contract, that this is at will. So I don't know why you would offer retirement benefits like that for an at-will employee.
Any other discussion? Yes?
The only thing I will say is the fact that I have no problem with the raise increase for the salary, but as far as the rest of it, I just want to, I'll vote on that portion of it when it becomes time to approve the contract as a whole. I just want to make sure the changes are made, so it reflects, because the contract does not specify as per secretarial contract and then spells it out. It simply says, here's the insurance, so I don't want it to be a case of I'm voting on, okay, here's everything as it sits in today's contract for the next year, where everybody else has had an increase. To that.
Unfortunately, you will be voting on exactly what it says on that sheet of paper, plus this
Okay. So
supplement to it.
The administration has, again, though, stated that
I
the
understand.
intent of the medical is to track that. So while we don't have those specific terms, I think we can be pretty confident that we understand what PPO health means to administration.
Let's not tell the public.
Well, we can make this simple and just give everybody a 60-day extension and bring these back in August.
I'd go
That
along
would
with
be
that.
my preference.
Let's do that.
Start with it.
And even to be fair, the raise could be retroactive.
Oh, yeah, that's my assumption.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of that. I think employees that have been with the district for a long time, as these employees have, deserve, it's not their fault that we didn't get this done. They deserve to know how much they're going to be paid, what their vacation days are going to be.
Which is a valid point, but we're not discussing the employees and their loyalty, we're discussing the position.
So all positions with the district should be, operate under that. I don't like this idea of tacking on 60 days, retroactively having to pay it back.
Because a small group of people, just because they're non-bargaining.
Exactly, you'd never get away with this if it were a bargaining unit.
But
No,
that's
that's
what
not
these
even
contracts
true.
are, exactly. They're not
You
members
can
of the union, they
retroactively
don't.
pay people in bargaining units, it happens all the time.
We're up against the deadline where the contract's expiring, where I think that there's a good faith understanding on their part that we'd be done, and on our part to complete the contracts in a timely fashion. I don't understand. I voiced my concern.
I'm with John on the other side. I'd like to do the 60-day extension and review the full contracts.
Do you have any discussion? All right, the motion on the floor is to accept the contract of the technical application facilitator as it currently exists. All those in favor? That's the proposed. Opposed? We had 2 yeses.
You're voting on everybody's individually when you get to the action items, or?
Just the
It's
technical.
just the technical aspect of it. When we get to action items, we will vote again to accept the whole kit and caboodle or not to accept.
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? Who?
Ellen and Chris are yes.
Okay,
Carl, Andrew, John, Dan, Jeremy, we're no's. Okay? A motion to move into executive session to discuss, what do you want to call it?
A delay of
To discuss review of non-union contracts. We are going to invite in, as before, the superintendent and the director of human resources. Do I have a motion?
Wait, one sec.
No.
Discussion?
No, I need a motion. I asked for a motion.
It was moved.
It was.
excuse
Who
me.
said motion?
I have to raise
Over
my
here, I
hand.
heard.
I want
Chris,
to, I want
second.
this
And I
done
seconded.
in open session.
Second. Jeremy. Okay, discussion.
The mayor, can we invite the mayor into this?
As
Yep.
an ex officio member, I can.
She's in anyway, she's part of the board.
Okay.
And
I'm all set.
I'm not sure why we're going into executive session. Are we expecting the outcome to be anything different than what we've done this time?
You can vote no.
I'm going to. I'm
That's
just wondering
fine.
if
There's a motion on the table. All those in favor? All those opposed? Excellent. Agenda item 6 is done. Action items. Approval of financial statements.
So moved.
Second.
Hang on,
Discussion.
who said first?
Chris.
Chris
Oh, I can't
made the
see
motion,
him.
Ellen
Yeah,
made the second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Approval of the 2014-15 Adult Education Program Improvement Project.
that's you.
Sure. Do we have a motion for this? Chris, second?
Second.
Carl. Discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous. Approval of Information Technology Services Agreement.
So moved.
Chris.
Second.
Carl. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? One abstention, Mr. T. D is off the table.
I officially move that we table action item D until the August regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have 5 seconds. All in discussion? We'll give it to Mr. Kisko. I heard his voice. All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Rivera is opposed. Okay? Am I going too fast or you good? Okay. Consent agenda.
Second.
Ellen? Ellen, you were the motion, who was the second? Chris? Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. I'd like to get a motion to amend the agenda.
So we'll
Do that. Jeremy,
do that now?
with 2/3, we can amend the agenda, correct?
At this stage?
Correct.
Yeah.
In our executive session under review of non-union contracts, the superintendent had a proposal for a Vogel Wetmore principal that she would like to get under contract, but if we don't approve the appointment first, she's not able to offer this person a contract till the end of August, and this person will no longer be available by the end of August. We'll be lucky if they're available by Friday. So she has made a recommendation. They've gone through the interview process for a principal for Vogel Wetmore. So,
There were board members who were part of the interview.
while we're under action items.
Can we get a comment from the board members who were part of the interview process?
If we get an addition to the agenda, then it becomes an item, then yes.
So moved.
Second.
Jeremy said he would make the motion, so Chris will second it. You would like to make your motion to add discussion on a principal position for Vogel Wetmore? Right. Well worded. All right.
And we do have,
Okay,
resumes.
discussion. You do?
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
I have
let's hand
copies
those
of his
out.
resume.
That'll become F.
We need to vote to accept the motion.
I'm sorry.
We'll discuss and then.
There was discussion on whether to accept the motion,
Which was to add it to the agenda.
to add it to the
Right, so
agenda.
we can
My
vote to
question
add
is
it.
how this would have come up in an executive session. if
That's
this topic
irrelevant
was
at this
exec-
point. We're voting.
Well, yeah, okay, I just.
It was, it's a non-union contract. She just called out his.
That's
No,
spurious
this is,
statement.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's,
not business.
It would not have been a fit topic for our executive session. To say it would have been brought up as an indication that we were willing to lie.
okay, I guess my concern is putting somebody's name out there.
I understand that.
I
And you're
don't- I
right
wasn't-
about that. But it's wrong to say executive session for one reason and then discuss other things. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Then we
Any
would
other
have done
discussion?
it.
Any other discussion?
Come on.
All those in favor of amending the agenda? Opposed? One opposed, Mr. Kiska. Okay.
May I pass this out?